So now that the ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule has been suspended, he'll no longer be allowed to publicly speak on behalf of the party or lobby anyone on its behalf. For some insight on this, we're joined by political analyst Oliver Dickson. Oliver, very good morning to you. How important is it that Ace has been effectively muted for the party, for the leadership?
I think it will have the impact that Cyril Ramaphosa's camp hopes it does. That is to say that Ace can't lobby, that Ace can't put together a program of action for his own campaign bid to become the president of the party and subsequently the president of the country. Because Ace Magashule, that work can still happen for Ace Magashule by those around him. And it will be very hard for the party to prove that Ace meeting up with Carl Niehaus is a political activity and not just two friends hanging out. And so I think in large part, Ace will still be able to work the ground, so to speak, in the run-up to the NGC and certainly in the run-up to the elective conference next year. More importantly, Ace Magashule will still have access somehow to what happens in NEC meetings, because it's not as though those who are sympathetic to him in those meetings won't give him a report back as to what was discussed and discuss strategy for the next NEC meeting, next NWC meeting, whatever the case may be.
And you wonder what happens to people like Tony Yengeni. I mean, he was a big supporter of him. As you say, Ace will be privy to much of the information. But what sort of clout does he really have? He's submitted this letter calling on the suspension of Cyril Ramaphosa, but he has no grounds, really, to do that. What does he think?
So what Ace Magashule did in that instance is not really think that he has the power to call for the suspension of the president. Ace Magashule was trying to muddy the water to create as much confusion as possible. It's a very classic Ace Magashule tactic to do this, to create as much confusion as possible, but also raise the tension within the party for two things to happen. One, either for the confusion to have to be resolved through some means, and in that way Ace Magashule will always say, let's take it back to the branches so that the people who elected us decide whether or not we should step aside, right? Individually on a case-by-case basis. That is obviously a monstrous task to execute, and so no one will actually want to do that, right? Given that the ANC doesn't have the resources, we're living right in the middle of a pandemic, in case we forgot, and that will be difficult to assemble branches across the country for BGCs or special sittings of branches so that they can vote on a referendum, so to speak, about this. That's the first. The second thing that Ace is trying to do here is to rise the tension so high that those who care about the image of the party, but the unity of the party, who recognize the ANC is vulnerable and brittle, for them to step up and say, look, guys, let's all retreat. Right? In that way, the retreat is a compromise in the middle where neither Ace Magashule is suspended and where neither Cyril Ramaphosa is suspended. That means it's a win for Ace because he's no longer suspended. So if he raises the battle to the level that which the NEC and the NWC rose it to, then he certainly will be able to find room for compromise. That's one of two things that Ace Magashule aims to achieve in this instance.
But sorry,
only the next few days will tell whether that's successful.
Okay, Oliver, as we know, when you see people failing, there's a shift of power, isn't it? I mean, surely this can only play well into Cyril Ramaphosa, somebody who needs all the help that he can get. Surely it'll consolidate his power.
Right, you would think there would be a shift of power, right? Because Ace has now been isolated and is seen as the losing horse in the race. But let's take into context what's happening, into consideration what's happening at the center of this dispute. It's the asbestos case in the Free State, right? And many other people will be implicated there. So, for instance, Nomvula Mokonyane is also deeply exposed in this asbestos case because she signed off on it when she was still the premier of Gauteng, transferring power for the Free State government to appoint Black Hat Consulting, right? She's exposed to this, and she is also alleged to have taken kickbacks from the joint venture between Black Hat Consulting and the company that eventually executed this program. So Nomvula Mokonyane and those sympathetic to her, which many still do exist within the ANC Women's League, will be able to rally behind Ace Magashule, right? There's also the fact that Paul Mashatile is the guy that Edwin Sori is backing his hopes on to keep him out of jail. So Ace Magashule and Paul Mashatile might find an unlikely alliance on this particular matter, right? That is to say, if Edwin Sori really does believe that Paul Mashatile will keep him out of jail. Remember that Paul Mashatile is the guy that had to go to Edwin Sori to ask for monies in the form of donations for the ANC so that the ANC's election program have some sort of funding. He's the Treasurer General. And so he might find alliance with Ace Magashule in terms of that. And that is a top 6 member that Ace Magashule will find alliance with. The only other top 6 member that Cyril Ramaphosa has any sort of strong alliance with is the chairperson of the party, Gwede Mantashe, whose political career has reached its twilight, right, and has no real sway an ambition going forward. And Jessie Duarte, I don't think has any ambition of becoming the next Secretary General or any other position within the ANC top 6. She's also reached the twilight of her political career. There are 3 people trying to survive here. It is Ace Magashule, it is Didi Mabuza, who's completely quiet, unexposed, and so will stay out of this mess. Although if we do take into consideration the ESCOM files that News 24 published a few days ago, Didi Mabuza might also have to consider the fact that he soon too could be suspended if he becomes indicted in a court of law. And then there's Cyril Ramaphosa and Paul Mashatile. These 4 people all have presidential hope within their political career left, and so it's just about who has more mileage left in their tank to be able to gain momentum towards the next elective conference. And alliances will form there. And I think the first alliance we will see form there is between Ace Magashule and Paul Mashatile. And if Paul Mashatile is as convincing as he was the last time around, he could get back into his corner, Didi Mabuza.
Okay, the game not nearly anywhere near the end. Political analyst Oliver Dickson talking to us. Thank you very much for that. And obviously as South Africans, we want this to speed up quickly because we'll be continuing to pay their salaries even when they step aside.